Well, excuse the mess, but Scotia's motor and trans should be going in today. Just got the flywheel and clutch thrown on. Pressure plate torqued to 18.5, flywheel torqued to the second setting of that until it stops moving, so that seems fine. Clutch is done. I don't know if I've mentioned this, but as you can see here, there's some stuff going on here. Bunch of JB weld. I might have some pictures of it before, but essentially what had happened is I had the AW71 and I was trying to mount it to the motor maybe 2 months ago, and stupidly, I don't know what it was going on, why it wouldn't mount. Like it wasn't straight, I guess. I think maybe the flywheel was bent, or the flex plate was bent, because I had the trans on the back of the motor and it wasn't seated all the way and it was kind of hanging, and I had left it like that overnight, not thinking anything of it. So when I came back the next day, the flex plate was bent, and instead of noticing that issue, I then tried to put the bolts in here and just hammer the trans on to make it pull itself into the motor. And I guess I used this bolt hole, which is actually supposed to be a dowel pin, but I don't have one, and I didn't realize it. And so I cranked on this bolt and these two, and when I cranked, the trans kind of shifted and just completely broke off the entire starter mount from the block. So it's cracked all the way through, and it's cracked from literally from split here all the way down the side. It is cracked. And I had to, well, what I did was I put the transmission on, well, the AW71, I put that back on without the flex plate, without all the crap. And once the trans was bolted, I then bolted the starter piece to the transmission here once it was on the motor. And then I bolted in this one from the inspection plate, bolted that through because it goes into this piece, and then JB welded the outside, and then I had some in between the two pieces as well, and let that dry for 2 or 3 days. Then I took the transmission off, and then JB welded the back side of it, let that sit for 2 or 3 days, then painted it. But it should hold. I mean, it's not like a major part, because once it's bolted here and to the transmission, it's not going to go anywhere. And even if it does crack again, the starter is still going to be bolted to the transmission from the spacer, so it's not like a big deal. When it first happened, it was a big deal because I thought the motor was ruined, but it really just me being over dramatic. All it really does is acts as a spacer, and as long as this is bolted to the trans, the starter is bolted to the trans, and it's not going anywhere. Anyways, rant over. The AW71 is no longer needed, even though I went and bought another flex plate to bolt to it because I thought I was using it when it was going in the wagon. And then we got the M46 kit. So clutch is on, flywheel's been resurfaced, that's all done. I just sorta serviced the trans. We've got new fork, new pivot ball, release bearing, the STS machining shifter bushings, as well as everything down here. So before y'all saw this, it had no bushings in it at all. Now it's mint. I lost the reverse lockout. Probably saw that in the other video when it dropped, and then I lost the bolts, and then I lost the plate for it. Don't know where it went. It's over there somewhere next to all the boxes because I'm moving out of here. But everything here is good. New dust boot as well. And just kind of wire wheeled everything in here so I can tell if it's leaking, which it shouldn't, but it's nice to have things cleaned. Got some grease on there. Might put a little tiny bit more, but I am about to mount the trans to the motor. And once that is done and the trans is mounted, I'm going to push the car out and slip this guy back into Scotia where it belongs. And then That's where my extension was. It's a great place for it. Once it's, in the car, I'll probably just leave it overnight and then come back tomorrow, and bolt everything up. I probably won't even do the motor mounts tonight. I'll just kind of set it in the holes and leave the bolts open. But that's done. I did have to get new... Where's it at? A new stainless... Or is it stainless? I don't fucking know. But it's a whole kit for the turbo because the water lines had rusted off when I was using just water for the longest time. It rusted out these lines and broke off and leaked all the coolant out one day. Luckily, I caught it before it overheated. So I've got a whole new kit for it. Oil feed and coolant lines. Even though this one's still good, might as well replace it. Comes with new washers and all that. So I'll get that done. I need to tighten these and just throw the motor in. And it should be running the next few days. Well, today is the next day. I did not end up putting it in last night just because I didn't feel like working out in the dark. But I was able to do some other stuff in the daytime, like mount the power steering and AC, motor mounts, trans cross member, and some other crap. But I still have to take out the auto rear end of the drive shaft, and I think I have to swap out that rear bearing, whatever they call it. I don't know. But she's about ready to go in. Kind of just have everything loose like this, just so I can mount this to the body, then fully seat the whatchamacallit. And now that I'm looking in here, I don't see my damn speedo cable. So I wonder if I ripped it out when I did the automatic. I really hope I didn't, because finding an 84 speedometer cable is going to be extremely difficult. Throttle cable, vacuum. Did I really do that? It's really unlike me. Huh. Interesting. Great. Still not gonna have a speedo. Anyways, let me get this back in. While I was putting the drive shaft in the car, that is the front section of the M46, supposedly. It bolts up to the rear of the AW71. Don't know why. Maybe it's just a flange thing. But this car is an 84. The transmission seems to be from an early 80s manual car. The drive shaft seems to not fit at all, as nowhere. It's like that far from connecting to the flange. But we got the motor in. Everything's looking great. I'm waiting on some heater hoses from IPD because I neglected to order those. I had bought a brand new set for this car, and then I bought that white wagon and was going to put this motor in that car, so I bought another set for the wagon and don't know where I put the set that I got for this car. So I have to order another set, and I'm waiting until I get those before I put the intake on, just so it's easier to do all this shit. And I still got to fix the wires back here that I cut. Go to the firewall harness. But everything else is pretty much in its place. Transmission is in. Yeah, fuck it. There we go. Got some nice tacky grease in there. Other than that, kind of just taking my time. Trying to get this done before I gotta move. Seems like all I do is wait on parts for this car. So there's the drive shaft. I'd already hooked it up to the rear end. And I guess I should have hooked it up to the front end first to see if it would even fit. Because it doesn't. And I thread locked those bolts back there, so I'll have a fun time getting those back off whenever I have to pull this guy out. There's like no grease on that either. Nice. Love to see it. And I did not find my speedometer cable, so I had to order a new one of those. Thankfully, IPD has them for like 20 bucks, so it's not a big deal. But it would have gone right there. Cracked block is holding up well with JB Weld. Just kind of get everything set here. But now we're at another halt until I can get a correct drive shaft. Turbo's looking good. I got these new lines put on here. I ended up doing the drain line, and I'm going to do the feed line as well. No, it's not actually 30 PSI. I just had a Sharpie and felt like doing that. For anyone that pops the hood, they're going to see a little turbo like this. Like, I think spins to 30. Like, yeah, 30 PSI. It'll do it. It won't do it. It'll probably do it for a short while, and then go poof, and it won't do nothing after that. Alternator belts, spark plugs, cap, rotor, more M46 stuff. We'll get there eventually. Well, we got the final few parts for Scotia to go together. Just received the clutch cable. Well, that's the Speedo cable, actually. Speedo cable and some other little odds and ends for it to go back together. The drive shaft was an issue. I unfortunately got a drive shaft for an 86 plus 240, so the output flange, or the mounting flange to the transmission itself, is a little bigger on this one, and I have the early style M46, so I have to get a new flange. Luckily, the guy that sold me this whole M46 swap found one out in California, and he's going to be sending the flange my way, so I just have to stick that on, and she'll have a drive shaft. But I'm finally getting things bolted up and tidied, all the little things sorted out, turbos mounted. I put these new stainless lines on because the ones I had were rotted from using water, which, you know, it's what I get. But I still got to hook up the oil feed line, got the braided oil drain. I had all this before, but all mine were old, and I figured, you know, if I'm going to be buying the coolant ones, I might as well buy the feed and return, just do it all, get new, what do you call these, the copper washers and everything, just do it all again. It's cheap enough, cheap insurance. We've got new radiator hoses. I've got everything in here mounted and cleaned. Got to get this bolted up. Got me a new hose for here, and there's another one for the brake booster. That mine's all dry rotted, so I bought another one of those. Everything's looking good. I'm just taking my time because I didn't do it the first time when I was at the house and problems arose. I'm not trying to have problems again. But the transmission is in. She officially has a chopstick. But, you know, I still have to get the pedal box installed and then drill the hole for the clutch cable, and that'll be sorted out. In other news, this car's back. This is the car that started my channel in the first place. I threw on the quad rounds. I've got the squares over there. I just wanted to see how it would look. But I now remember why I sold this car. There was a bunch of little issues here and there, like the power steering rack was leaking, so that needs to be replaced. All the rust. Just a bunch of little shit that I totally forgot about, but it's the way she goes. While it was gone, the owner really didn't drive the car that much. He was planning on doing some kind of swaps, but never really got around to it. But since he owned it, the ignition has gone out of the car. this is a newer style. This isn't the one that's for the car. But his cylinder, it would turn, but it wouldn't get to that detent where you have to turn it further to crank the car. So it would just constantly crank anytime the battery was connected. And so he bought this to replace it. But this one is for a 90, well, actually an 86 plus 240. It's got some different mounting, because this one is a collar that mounts around the steering column. But this collar is bigger because the steering shafts in the later 240s were bigger. I need the clamp style, but luckily someone on Turbo Bricks in Canada is sending me one, so I don't have to keep starting the car with a screwdriver in the switch, which has been fun. I don't know, can't do it with one hand, but the car does run and it runs well. Oh. There we go. So nothing's really changed on the car. It's pretty much the exact same as I sold it. I did fix this when I first got it back, because I found this, when I first got this car, the trunk was locked, so I drilled out the cylinder because there was no key for it. But I ended up finding one in my parts bin when I got the car back, and I put that in there. It does need a very deep clean. I do want to do some things, like the IPD dash cover that I bought has bubbled up, so I want to replace that and mount it properly, because I don't think I glued it. That's probably why. It needs a new driver's seat because that one's kind of leaning down. Need to get this redone. I don't know. Need to get new tires on it because these are old and dry rotted. It still runs great. It's just very dirty. Very, very dirty. Yeah, power steering leaks at the rack, so there's nothing in here. He did do the AC bypass. He added this spacer, which is the same thing Scotia has, so I can run the belt and bypass the AC compressor. Motor's still bone quiet, because this is an 88 motor, LH 2.2, that I swapped into it. I do plan on doing Easy K, the same this car has. Easy K ignition, just to get rid of the old Chrysler box, and just have a power stage over here. It's just much more reliable. But the hinges are so freaking nice on this. Everything opens and closes so smooth. Love it. Loved the paint on this car. Probably can't really see it, but it's got that flake in it. Man, I miss this car so much. Should have never sold this one. Let me go ahead and cut off the ignition. Gotta hide my key so no one knows where it's at. Crank sunroof still works. Just all around great car. As I say that, because it's not really bolted in at the moment because the ignition's out. But I think that's gonna do it for this video. Still waiting on that drive shaft, like I said, for this. But I'm actually got a bunch of other stuff that needs to go on right now, since I'm just tidying stuff up, bolting stuff up. And then I'll double check all my wiring and all my hoses. Still got to do valve cover gasket and then repaint the valve cover because the engine hoist ruined it. But no biggie. I was always scared of this because this hose looks like it rubs the head, but I don't know. But it's been fine on the 3 cars this motor's been in, so I'm guessing it's going to be fine again. But we'll get this wrapped up, and hopefully the next video this car will be running and making power with M46.